This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
After a disappointing end to the regular season, the Lady Vols get a clean slate in Athens, Georgia. How the Lady Vols look to take advantage of the postseason. Next, here on the Sports Source Digital Network. The Lady Vols' greatest Achilles heel is oftentimes their inability to capitalize on the efforts from the circle. I'm Paige Dauer, and this week on the Lady Vol Focus, we look at how Karen Weekly's team can finally and more consistently get on the winning side of those pitcher stools.
Yeah, I think the big key is not getting to the fifth inning and saying, hey, we've been taking too many pitches, now we need to attack.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to figure out, but subscribing here is not. Oftentimes this season, and especially through SEC play, the pitching staff has put together pretty stellar performances. One because of Carlin Pickens, who's second best in the country in ERA, and then other times by committee. But regardless of who's in the circle, more times than not, the Lady Vols aren't really able to find the answer on offense. We certainly saw that in the series against Texas A&M, namely that first game, where it really quickly did turn into a pitcher's duel, and it came down to Tennessee's inability to capitalize on the 8 walks that they had, and then Texas A&M was able to capitalize on the first mistake that was made, truly, and it was an error in the 7th, and Texas A&M was able to bring in a run, and they ended up losing a really close game, 1-0, and I think Tennessee's ability to finally be smart and aggressive at the plate at the right time could end up being the difference between an early exit in the postseason or having a long run.
From the first inning on, being in an attack mindset, not letting good pitches go by, and then we're able to make adjustments. We can't really make adjustments when we haven't been approaching the at-bats the right way.
For much of the season, the question marks really have been around what they can do on offense. Sometimes you get great performances, other times they end up getting, really quiet, and I think it ends up coming down to the inconsistency in their approach at the plate. We saw it in game 1 that we mentioned a moment ago when they were able to get those 8 walks. Well, most of those walks came later in the game because they were maybe aggressive in the wrong tune early in the game, where it ends up looking like they're chasing pitches or they're attacking too early when their pitcher was throwing a number of balls and they needed to take advantage of that. They did late in the game, but then they just couldn't get the right types of hits to bat any of them in, and you end up with 10 strikeouts to 8 walks and no runs scored.
I think just being aggressive, we talked heavily about being aggressive yesterday and just swinging at anything in the strike zone and just being having our swings have intent.
Other times, like in game 2 against Texas A&M, you'll have Sophia Nugent, the senior catcher, who will provide tons of life for the team and ends up helping to lift the team to a victory in that series so they avoid getting swept. But you can see how the inconsistency maybe impacts the team because they're 29th in the country with an on-base percentage of like .414.
We hesitate, whether it's at the plate, in the circle, on defense, bad things happen. And so for us, it's let's go down there and starting with our game on Thursday, have a game where in all 3 phases we can say we were on the attack. Most of our errors occur when somebody hesitates, and we've just kind of got to get past that. And most of our bad offensive outings occur when we are too hesitant at the plate and we take too many good pitches and don't get into kind of an attacking swing mode. So we're still battling, I think, the same demon. But every game is a chance for us to improve in that respect.
The 2 possible teams the Lady Vols could face in the SEC tournament are teams that not only have they faced before, but they also have better on-base percentages than the Lady Vols. So what the Lady Vols can't do is get into an all too familiar position where the game ends up being on the shoulders of their pitchers.
From the first inning on, being in an attack mindset, not letting good pitches go by, and then we're able to make adjustments. We can't really make adjustments when we haven't been approaching the at-bats the right way.
But the Lady Vols have one of the toughest schedules in the country this season, and yet they still mustered 40 total wins and 15 conference wins.
I think just our past series, we've taken down some really good teams, and just being able to have that confidence going in is huge.
Love the fact that we played a really, really tough schedule. I mean, there's nobody in the country that we're going to see that has something different or better than what we've already seen. And not just seen once, but seen multiple times.
Now, the Lady Vols could face Georgia or Arkansas, and it could go two very different ways. At least against Georgia, when they played them in Athens, the Lady Vols were able to win that series, but they were not able to win the one at home against Arkansas, where they only were able to get one of those games, and that was the third game, which they won 3-2. But if you look at those 6 games across those 2 series, the games were closer than they needed to be oftentimes. But when you look to maybe the series against Georgia, where they found a lot of offensive success, that's something that they need to be able to replicate. In the 2 wins that they had, they scored 6 and 5 runs. They need to find that type of offense again.
And I think it's huge. A lot of the teams that we have played in the series, I think we're going to see postseason, even in the World Series. So I think it's huge knowing that we have faced and beaten some of these great teams.
Now, what the team can certainly look forward to when they enter the SEC tournament in the quarterfinals after getting the double bye is the fact that it's a clean slate. It's a 0-0 record, and the history of what they've been able to do this season doesn't really matter. And I think when you consider how the season ended, that's probably a mindset that they're leaning into more than they have maybe in recent years. And you certainly want to make sure that they have a better outing than they did last time in the SEC tournament, when they got immediately bounced from it, but still made it in the quarterfinals. But having that type of fresh mindset is something that the team is really leaning into.
No, I think postseason, just a fresh start. Right now we're in 0-0. Everyone's going into postseason fresh. So I think the next game mentality is really huge. And I think this weekend it was really big, just focusing on our seniors.
And for Karen Wickley, this is really one of her more favorite times of this season as well.
I think just because everything kind of starts over, nothing you've done to this point matters. So if you're frustrated or you feel like there's something missing in your game, hey, now's your chance. It's a clean slate.
We'll have much more in the Lady Vols again next week, but in the meantime, you can also head over to my channel at Full Disclosure Pro for day-to-day content on all things Tennessee Vols baseball and Lady Vol softball. Until then, I'll talk to you guys here next week on the Sports Source Digital Network.